My name is Dan Young, and welcome to the Millionaire Code podcast. I'm a self-made guy that has made multi-million-dollar businesses from scratch. There's no way I could have done it without the help of mentors who provided me with the wisdom and guidance to help me create the formula for success. Each week on my podcast, I'm going to interview a hugely successful business person that will provide you their secrets to success, and that way can act as your mentor too. I can't wait to share their stories and takeaways with you. Welcome to Dan's Millionaire Code. Hi guys, Dan Young here, and welcome to Dan's Millionaire Code podcast, where every week I will bring you a good friend of mine, a successful entrepreneur, and someone who changes the entire planet with their awesomeness. Today, we have Andrew Smith, and some of the brands that he has started is incredible. You've probably heard a lot of these brands here. R&R Barbecue was one of your more recent acquisitions, right? And you're
phenomenal.
Expanding that. Little Caesars.
Yeah, we own 71 of those on the Southeast. 71, we're one of the largest packages.
One of my favorite places to get sandwiches and desserts is Neater's.
Of course, Nader's Bakery and Cafe.
You have Soda Shop, the Soda
Swig.
Shop.
Swig and the Soda Shop.
And the Soda Shop, wow. Oh, and this one freaked me out because I always get the keto version of Hawaiian food, Mo Betta's.
Yeah, Mo Betta's.
Yes.
Still one of the best brands on the planet of Earth. So cool.
Very wide portfolio of things.
Yeah.
Now, friends, if you find this podcast useful, there's nothing to buy here. There's no program you have to sign up for or anything I'm going to sell you here. The guests that come on the show are sharing their success with you. And so how can you say thank you to Andrew and myself? Well, you can execute what you learn here. Very important. Don't just write it down. Do something about it. Take action and share it with your loved ones. That's all I ask you guys to do, is share it and execute it.
Good challenge.
So that's it, right?
Good challenge.
So let me just give a quick little bio intro here. So I took it off your website. With over 2 decades of experience and proven executive management track record of driving massive growth in retail, tech as well.
Tech as well.
So that's pretty
It's crazy.
cool. Finance and in the restaurant industry. You founded the Four Foods Group.
Yeah.
And we talk about all those different restaurants that are in your portfolio, and you're on this massive growth onslaught going forward. Tell me a little bit about like how did you land into this? Because literally these restaurants, I probably go to one of these at least once or twice a week.
It's not a line item on your budget, right, for your family? You have the line item and all those restaurants fall into it, right?
I really like your R&R Barbecue and Mo Betta's.
phenomenal,
That's
yeah.
like my addiction.
Yeah, everybody's addicted to protein right now, so it's the thing. Yeah, when we started the Four Foods Group, when I grew up, and I think it's probably the same for you, Dan. I grew up and there was 4 food groups. Remember that? There was like the dairy, and then there was the grain. But now there's like 16 of them, like, right? There's kale, and there's quinoa, and there's all these funky food groups. But I wanted to play off of my heritage, and that's 4 food groups. But
It's a great name, man.
So we played off of that when we started it, because we knew we were going to venture into multiple different brands, touching all types of food. But the first one we started with Nader's Bakery and Cafe, I had just come out of an 11-year stint of technology. I built and sold 3 tech companies, went through the dot-com bubble, went through the 2007, 2008 crash, and I was just tired of the cyclicality of tech. It's very, very tough to live through a bubble that bursts like that. And you're sitting in bed at night looking at the ceiling going, what am I going to tell my employees? I have to cut half of my staff tomorrow to survive. And so I got to the end, sold my last company, which was called Access Point, based out of Thanksgiving Point in Atlanta. And I thought, what industries are ones that are more recession-proof, more resilient to the correlations of the market swinging up and down? And I thought, when the Dow was 7,000, people were still eating, right? I mean,
That's
the Dow is
right.
right now 25,600. If it goes down to 10,000, you and I are still going to meet somewhere and break bread.
Probably going to eat more.
You're probably going to eat more, to be honest.
Sad.
Yeah,
we'll eat more.
you are. And that's the funny thing is when we picked Nader's Bakery and Cafe to be our first brand, I thought, what's comfort food and where do people eat when they're not feeling great? They eat comfort food. So Bakery and Cafe was what I was thinking. They had been around for 10 years, had 5 stores. So I got involved with them, 10 years, 5 stores, unbelievable success. But when I met with the founders, I said, well, why haven't you grown this? And they're like, well, access to capital, don't really know where to get it and how to structure that, and we don't really have the abilities to scale beyond what we know, and this is what we know. So I thought, this is an unbelievable, revolutionary idea to take brands that hit this wall at 4, 5, 6 units. They don't know where to grow from there, because they've never done it before. I've scaled businesses before, I've raised money before. So I thought if I could build this world-class system to plug into these really hot brands, I could scale them to true enterprise value. So I started with Neater's Bakery and Cafe, worked the restaurant, worked the line, cleaned the bathrooms, did it with my wife.
Wow.
Started with one restaurant, and the next year did another restaurant. We were learning the industry. We're students of the game. You have to be a student of the game in every industry you're in. And once we kind of figured out, we said, we kind of see how to scale this now. This is the team we have to build. These are the systems and process, the technology we have to employ into all of our businesses. We just went after it. So we put 50 of those in the ground over the next 7 years. A lot. And this was during recovery, too. This is a recession. I started in 2008.
Wow. So you're opening at the bottom.
Bottom, right?
It doesn't get any worse than that.
No, it was never worse, right? And the thing that was the biggest driver, and I think that this you'll understand as an employer, too, is that I had made some money in my previous career. You know, obviously I went through some bubbles, and it was never as good as I wanted it to be because we'd gone through these big swings. But I was sitting there looking at the market, and I thought, where can I do the most good, too? And you can't do a business just to make money. Would you agree? You can't just open it and say, I'm doing this just so I can make a bunch of money so I can vacation and party and buy crap.
No.
So for my wife and I, we said, what could we do to add as many jobs as possible? Because there was a massive shortage of jobs. Was there not?
Oh, yeah.
And so that was our drive 11 years ago when we started 4 Foods. And since we started the company, that's been our drive the entire time. And so we've created 16,000 jobs.
It's huge.
It's huge. I mean, that's
16. So tell me about the size of the whole group now.
Yeah, so the group right now is 5,800 employees, 167 restaurants, 13 states.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a $200 million company.
That's huge. Yeah, I want to be like you when I grow up.
Well, I want to be like you when I grow up too. So, no, but so it's been a lot of fun, and it's one of those things that we didn't know what we were going to be. We just knew that we were doing good. So since our focus has been creating opportunity and employment for people where they feel like they can come and share their ideas and thoughts and work in a wholesome environment. It can be a pretty rough environment. We thought let's have an environment where people are excited to come. There's career pathing. There's opportunities to actually have long-term careers in food and beverage, and not just your hourly people that go to college and then go off and get a career. So we've created a lot of very high income earning potential jobs for people.
I've been to Neater's a lot, and I've never seen employees look like depressed or upset or any sort of weird stuff going on. You know, you see some businesses.
You're going to see it too.
You see a lot of, but whenever I've been in there, and the weird thing is the process is very consistent.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to hear about some of the techniques you use to create that consistent process. You know, where they say is, Deming said quality is a lack of variance.
Yes. How do you eliminate the variance is what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, amazing.
It's hard. Well, and it's hard too because if you think about it, you know, I went from tech, and you have a lot of employees that this is their career. They're probably going to be with you for a decade, 2 decades, as long as we treat them well and create a good environment for them, pay them fairly. But besides that, people want to work for a place that they actually feel like they can make at home, right? And so for me, I understand that my job is my direct reports. And if you look at my organization, I always tell everybody, we're a flat organization, and if there's a decision that we kind of are a lockstep on and need to make a decision, well, I'll make that. But we're flat. And so my decisions they're group-oriented. We make decisions together. But my concern,
take notes on this one.
Yeah, but my concern is that they know I care about them. I care about their families. I care about what their career is in their minds, and make sure that I hit that career level for them somehow, or at least map that out. But if I take care of them, I know that their job is to take care of then middle management. And middle management, if they're taken care of, will take care of my general managers and partners in our stores. And if they're taken care of, they'll take care of our employees the way that I want them to be. And in turn, they'll take care of you as the guest, the patron. I don't have to worry about you, Dan, or another customer, one of you, coming in the door, because I care about my people that care about their people that care about their people that will care about you.
So you start top.
You have to start at the top so that they understand what the vision that we have is, and that is we're an employment organization where we're creating a wholesome environment for people to work. And if we take care of them, they'll take care of our guests. We don't have to worry about the guest experience. Now, is it perfect? No, nothing's perfect. You know that. And is it flawless? No. But that's how we start. And so we put a lot of money and time and attention into leadership training and development. We do that within the company.
And you spend personal time
with them
with those top commanders of your
top commanders, the GMs in our stores. They hear from me, they see me, we talk to them, they understand what my vision is. And as the leader at the top, you have to have a vision and you have to execute on that vision, but you have to make sure everybody understands where are we headed. One of the hardest things within food and beverage, and there's a high turnover rate in food and beverage, is, and this is something that I've learned over the years, I thought, why is this a problem? And why is this a problem? I'd like to come up with solutions to inefficiencies in business, and that's why I did well with tech. and we've done well with food and beverages because I get the really smart people around the room, or around the table in the room, and I say, what's the inefficiency here with this brand, and how can we make it better? And we come up with solutions, and we solve it, right? But one of the inefficiencies in this market is that you pay them really, really low, right? The food and beverage employees, and you think, well, I'm going to lose them in 3 months anyway, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them. So there's typically a 200 to 400% turnover rate in food and beverage. 200 to 400%. Think about losing your people 2 to 4 times a year.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. And the cost of that is absurd. So for us, we thought, let's focus our time so we have people with us for 2, 3, 4 years. And then if they go through college and then they go off to a job, that's great. But we've taught them life lessons and skills as employees to use now in all of their jobs in the future. And we have people coming back saying, thank you for teaching me how to work and to follow through and keep commitment and all the things that we try to teach them. Others have stayed with us and have been cashiers. Now they're store owners making $100,000+ a year. And they were an $8 an hour cashier 2 years before.
So you map out the target of where they're going.
That's right.
And then you're sharing that vision.
Sharing the vision, and then we show them that, we're not a business that's going to be okay and satisfied with 5 or 6 units. When I bought into Mo Betta's, I have 2 founders there, Kimo and Kalani Mack, some of the greatest people you've ever met. They were bus drivers 10 years ago in Honolulu. Bus drivers, right? Wanted to do something better for their lives and their families. One of the brothers, Kimo, moved up here and wanted to bring his culture here. Nobody had done like this one plate plantation meal type of concept with true authentic Hawaiian food. So he brought it to his neighbors up in Bountiful. 10 years later, his brother had joined him. They had 6 restaurants is all, but they were doing very, very well, very, very profitable, but they didn't have the expertise to get it from 6 to 50 or 60 and build a couple $100 million organization. So we came in, bought into the business because we saw that that's what they wanted to create. And so that scale and that expertise to scale is a different skill set than creating the restaurant. That's not me. I could never say to you, Dan, hey, let's go into the R&D kitchen and figure out a new concept and go make it successful, because that's just not me. But if you've made something and you've proven that it's successful and the market has spoken, us coming in and saying we'll bring capital and expertise to now scale it from a $10 million company to a $200 million company, that's my jam.
Wow. That's beautiful, though.
And so people that are on that rocket ship go, holy crap, we just opened another store. Oh my gosh, there's 7 more in the queue. Oh my, so we just opened our 10th store and we have 7 being built. Now you have people in the organization going, there's plenty of management opportunities and career opportunities in this organization. I don't need to go look somewhere else. I can find it right here.
That's cool. So that's your expertise, is canning those system processes and then helping them scale.
That's correct.
With that.
That's right.
I can empathize with a lot of that, getting stuck sometimes. And again, we'll have to spend some more offline time.
Yeah, I know.
Get some advice from you. It's really tough building those consistent processes, replicating that, executing that, holding accountability for that, training that. That's an
and one solution never works the whole time. I remember when we were a $10 million company, we were putting things in place. We're like, this is going to just revolutionize everything, and it's going to be perfect. When we were a $40 million company, it's like, well, that's broken now. And then when you're a $100 million company, everything that you put in place at 40, you're like, well, I have to reinvent the company again. You can't foresee the problems you're going to have when you get big. And the hard thing is if you and I were partners in one brand, I would probably have seen you every month when we were a $50 million company. But when we were 3 times the size of that, I probably saw you once a year. And that's just the hard thing, is that you have less contact points. So then what do? You have to put other people in the middle of that, like I said, where I communicate with my team, they communicate it with middle management, and then you, and you're still hearing from me, but just sometimes through management.
So your top level guys that are your directs, did you personally recruit them?
Yeah, personally recruited, and they also came to us. I mean, after you gain some momentum and you get some name recognition, we flew under the radar for years because I was fine with that. I was kind of in one of those positions in tech, and tech typically, they're notorious for getting a lot of hype. If you raise money, they get a lot of hype, a lot of press. I was happy to kind of get out of that limelight when I started 4 Foods and just kind of lay low for 5-6 years. And it's crazy that over the last 5 years, it's kind of hard to stay quiet when you're growing and people know who you are now. And so we were having top talent call us and say, we hear who you are, what you're doing, what your culture's like. We want to come work with you. And so we were honored. And so we have a round table, square table, rectangular table, whatever you want to call it, but we have a round table of exceptional talent and people that are like, this is my last job ever.
Wow.
And they're 35 and 40 and 45. I mean, people that could be with us for 20 years.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. So let me ask you this. So it's been since 2008, right? Since
2008.
Since you started.
We
there.
opened in the recession.
What's the biggest, scariest thing that hit you in the face between then and now? How'd you deal with that?
I would say that the scariest thing is that when you get bigger, the problems in a business and an organization, they exponentially grow. If you're twice as big, they're not twice more problems. There's 10 times more problems. You have a lot more emotion. You have a lot more liability. You have a lot of leases. You have a lot of cash coming in and a lot of cash going out. You have a lot more voices of opinions. And so trying to control that and keep true to what you started the company with, it gets more difficult and it gets scary because you feel like, am I losing control of it because it's getting so big? And I look at people that are friends of mine or other organizations that I watch and admire, and you think, could you imagine being $1 billion company and being all over the nation and offices and international? And I respect the people that can do that, but then I think, but it's no different. You have your management team, and then they have their area of focus and their area so I think that we probably figure it out, you and I, Dan, but it just scares me because when you get bigger, it gets harder. And I don't think people say that. When they get bigger, they think, look at me, I'm big. And it's scary when you're big. You wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, I feel like all the pressure, You kind of think as the CEO that there's this pyramid and that you and I are on the top as CEOs of our organizations. And I've never looked at it as this pyramid and I'm at the top and everything comes down from me and I'm the hammer. I've never thought of it because I think about how I visualize the pressure, and it's really the inverse where I feel the pressure right here. And it's the way it should be. I, as a CEO, and you as a CEO, we're holding that pyramid up right on our forehead, all that pressure, because we feel that pressure. Well, they should feel that way too, is that we're there to support them and make them successful, not the other way where it's, I'm the hammer, you're all gonna do what I say.
Yes. Otherwise, you're constantly having to hammer.
You're constantly having to hammer, and then you're losing people because they're like, that guy's a jerk.
Yeah.
That woman's a jerk too. So my wife and I have run it in that format. My wife's the president. We started this together 11 years ago.
We were talking about that a little before the podcast. So
we started it together.
You guys met, and you guys had like $700 in the bank?
Yeah, so when we got married, we were in BYU land down here in Provo. I'm from Chicago. My wife's from Alabama, so she's a Southern belle, and I'm a city slicker, and opposites do attract, right? But we got married, and when we got married, I mean, we had no debt. We paid off our debt when we got together, our credit card debt, and we had $700 in our account. We thought we were rich. Lived in a 600 square foot apartment down there, and it was about 6-7 months later that one of my buddies that I had lived with said, I've got this idea for this tech. And I'm like, oh, cool, let's talk about it. And we talked about it, and fast forward, we raised money, built a company, lived through the dot-com bubble, and sold it to a public company. I was a public VP of sales when I was 26. I mean, it was a crazy ride.
That's crazy.
But yeah, my wife I got her, she and I had a baby about a year after we were married. So it was one of those, we got married and we got pregnant pretty quick, and we weren't expecting that. But it was great. But she was a stay-home mom, an executive, supportive mom, and for the first 10 years of my career, she was staying home, raising my 2 boys, and it was fun. But the thing that she's always said is I had this advantage coming into 4 Foods when we started it together. And in fact, I was still the CEO of my previous company when she started 4 Foods. So she actually is the original founder.
She is the founder, and she's the president.
And she's the president too. And she's the president, female president of one of the largest food and beverage companies in the nation right now too.
Wow.
Because there's not a lot of females in those roles. And so, and she's earned it. I mean, she's been in that role really. I was the CEO when I came in, but for all those years, you come home, you talk to your partner, your spouse, right? You can talk to everybody here and you can lean on them, but you go home and you really bare your soul to your partner, or you should. Everybody should bare their soul to their partner.
Definitely should.
Because it makes it more of a mesh. Like they care about what you do, and you say, oh, I got to go deal with this problem. Like, hey, good luck, and they know what's going on. Don't separate it and feel like work-life balance. Work-life balance should be the same thing. It's all together. And so I would come home and say, oh, this is a problem. What about this? And maybe you should try that. And I go, oh, that's a good idea. I'll go try that. So she was naturally educated into being in a leadership role because she just saw how it worked with me. So when we started this, I was like, good grief, she's like the silver bullet for me. I had no idea she was such a good executive, but she had watched it for 10 years. Wow. Ups and downs, right? So we started it 11 years ago, and now we've created this new food and beverage fund, and she's now the president of 4 Foods, and she's running that, but that's exclusive to the fund that we've raised. And so we work still very closely together, but essentially my partner and I are the money, and she's the whole platform that makes it all the magic happen.
So I have a crazy question for you.
Yeah.
I mean, before you started, you were in the kitchen, you're doing everything.
So everything.
Give me a typical day for you. Can you give me like a fast couple minutes summary of how does your day look?
Yeah, that's
Like
interesting.
From when you wake up to when you this
that's
is important
now, right?
though,
Yeah,
because
now.
like you're super successful. You got how many employees?
Yeah, so 5,500.
5,500 humans that
We're responsible for.
Yeah.
It's hard, yeah. And you're adding 80 to 100 a month.
Wow.
That's a lot.
People are only getting hungrier.
They're only getting hungrier, and we're only adding more units every single month. Right now, my days they're full. I mean, I made time for this, though.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate it.
I was looking forward to it. No, I was looking forward to it. But a typical day right now for me is executing on the vision that we've set for each of the brands that we currently own. So when I say executing on vision, I have to make sure that all of the different points of execution, that they understand what they need to do and that they have the resources to do it. So I just make sure that that's happening. So my days can be full of meetings on checking in on how are we executing on that vision and those goals for the month, quarter, year. Financial reviews I'm doing often with my finance team because we're growing so fast, each of these divisions. There's a lot of headcount that we're adding. So we're talking about who do we add and when do we add them. We talk about the locations that we're going to be building. So lots of development meetings, lots of real estate meetings right now. And then when we have those investment committee meetings, we're deciding where do we go, where do we build, and how much money do we allocate. So we're making $1 million decisions, every week, if not several $1 million decisions every week.
Wow.
Meeting with investors a lot because my job is a fiduciary over investing on behalf of other investors' money, including my own. My money is alongside all my investors, always has been. So usually investor meetings. Next week, for instance, we have our annual meeting with all of our investors, and so we'll have 400 people and come in, and we have to wine and dine them, and we have to explain to them how we're doing with their dollars, and so that's important. And then we meet with a lot of brands. So I'm meeting with the future of 4 Foods Group, and we're looking at brands all across the nation. So
you're recruiting, right?
Yeah, we're kind of recruiting.
You're kind of.
So we probably looked at 230 brands last year.
Wow.
Yeah, and we have 2 that kind of made the cut, and so we're in negotiations with them right now. And one's out of state, one's in state here in Utah.
200 brands.
Yeah, 200 brands, and we're looking for something that's unique. You look at our portfolio now, and people say, "Well, why R&R? Why Mobetas? Why Swig? Why even Neaters?" There's a lot of rhyme and reason to it, and we could have a whole new discussion for an hour on each of those and why. But there's trends in the industry, and there's things that we watch that we go, that's a trend that's going to be around for 7 to 10 years. And others might go, well, why did he buy that? There's a lot of analysis on that. We have a lot of smart people around our table going, what is the industry telling us? We go off of data. We have quants sitting in the corner saying, the industry is showing improvement here and here. I wouldn't go there. And we're like, okay, let's go find brands that are in that vein of flavor profile and location in America. So I'm looking for the next future brands too.
Wow. So you've got 2 in the pipe right now?
We have 2 in the pipe, and we have...
Super secret right now?
Yeah, super secret right now. But, and then we have several others that are at the table right now that we're negotiating with. So we hope to have 7 to 10 brands in our portfolio by the end of next year. So a couple of the brands that we have right now will most likely be sold off. And then we will buy the next generation of brands that are younger, and then we'll scale them to 50 brands, 50 stores.
So this is really cool. So you went from operator to someone now who takes these, incubates them, makes them really big and juicy, profitable, good system processes, and then cuts them loose.
We sell them off. And the reason being is because you have to kind of pick what you're really good at. There's, like I told you before, if you and I came up with a concept, I would tell you, I'm just not a concept guy. I think that we could sit in this cool room here and come up with a cool concept, but it's harder than you think. In fact, I sat down with the CEO of Chipotle. Everybody knows Chipotle. We had this fantastic conversation, and he said, what you guys are onto of taking these brands, because there's 800,000 restaurants in America, more than half of them are 1 to 5 unit brands. 1 to 5 unit operators. So you have more than half of the restaurant industry where they hit this wall of, I need money for my successful brand, and I need expertise. So even if we gave them money, okay, well now I have this hot potato problem where I have this money, I don't know how to grow it. So you need the experience and the bench of people to help you get there, right? So this first part is a very Darwinian kind of shakeout. You see the ones that the market likes, do they survive, do they not? There's a higher mortality rate in that arena. But once they get to 4, 5, 6 units, they've been around 3, 4, 5, 6 years, the failure rate of restaurants actually goes down to single digits. It's lower than anything.
So 6 years is the target?
Yeah, 4 to 6 years.
4 to 6?
4 to 6 years, and the mortality rate goes much, much lower. Now, there's brands we're looking at that are 2 years old, but the data that we have behind it says that they're in the right flavor profile, they're overperforming their peers, and we would probably take a look at it, maybe take a little more risk, because we're confident in our abilities. But really, the mortality rate goes way down when you're 4 to 6 units, 4 to 6 years. And so we look at those brands then. The market has spoken, has proved off the risk, like they've scrubbed the risk off. Well, there's very few people that can take that brand and take it to 30, 40, 50 units and create true enterprise value for those founders. Does that make sense? But then there's other people out there that I'm very aware of and I know very well that they're like, well, we don't want to do that work. That's hard. I'm like, well, it's hard, but it's straightforward. Yeah, but we don't want to do that. We want to write a $100 or $200 million check, and we want to go build a $1 billion business out of it by franchising and opening up hundreds of units. That's their game. My game's here. We're really good at it. But they need someone to do this before they're willing to take it and now go scale it to hundreds of units.
This is pretty cool.
That's cool, huh?
A lot of the people that I mentor with Dan's Millionaire Code they're in the restaurant business. They have one, two, three, those kind of things. And I'm glad you're here. And this probably would apply to any business, phone repair, tech, anything. Whatever you're selling, right?
Yeah.
What's some advice, maybe a few things that you would give to these restaurant owners to be able to get to that point where they're able to be a company where maybe you would look at the opportunity? So when you're vetting 200, you pick two.
What do you look for, right?
What's that? Yeah. What is that?
So I would say it does apply to every business, I believe, too. Because if I sit down with entrepreneurs, I never had a mentor, which is unfortunate. Later in life, I had people that I looked up to that have been very successful that I'll ask questions to still. But we all need a mentor. And so I would tell anybody that I would sit with that are younger restaurants, okay, this is what you need to do to really be successful and have a group like ours get involved. Notes on this. Yeah, and number one is don't scale your brand until you've proven the brand, right? Everybody thinks that going from 1 to 5 units as fast as you can will create value. And that's such a fallacy, right? It would be, you said it, phone repair. Why would you take one phone repair unit? You're sitting in front of a Costco, you're doing pretty good, but you're really not there yet. Why would you go open up another store and another store? Because you think more is going to make you money. Make this one excellent, right? Really nail it. And then once you've nailed that business and it's got a good system and process that can be duplicated, then go do one more and really nail that one. I've seen too many restaurants come up with a concept and within a year they're like, we're amazing. I'm like, well, you're still in your honeymoon period. Everything's cool because you're still in your honeymoon. But what happens when you're 3 years later and it's Groundhog Day? You're waking up and I got to go make the donuts. You got to go make the food and serve your customers. Are you still amazing 3 years from now? So make sure you nail it first, right? And before you scale to another unit, make sure that everything here is duplicatable. Work on your systems and your process and your operations manual so you can say, if Dan's not there, if Andrew's not there, but you have another unit over here, will it mimic or will it feel like the first unit where Dan and Andrew were in every day? Does that make sense? So try to really be able to say, if I wasn't there with this work, yeah, it would. Okay, well then add another unit. But add another unit and then give that a full year. There's too many people that are going, this one this quarter, this one this quarter, this one quarter, and then they have 4 units, and guess what? This amazing unit that they had, that first one, now is supplementing or covering the losses of all these other ones. And now you're working 5 times harder for less money. And you've just blown it up.
I've been there before.
All of us have. Overexpand, right.
Processes weren't down.
That's right.
Variance and experience from location.
That's right.
It's bad.
It's bad. Yeah. And we've all done it. And I was going to say, I've done it. That's what I'm saying. I've learned the hard way.
It's costly.
It's very costly. It's cost me millions of dollars. But I was going to say, I wrote an article last year and it was picked up by fastcasual.com. It's an industry publication for restaurants, fast casual restaurants. And my article that I got some grief on from some people, but it was incredible that the public responded to it and saying, finally someone says this, what the real fact is. And that was, I would sit down with other CEOs or other restaurant groups. I know a lot of them, and so we're friends, and we share best practices, and where are you growing, and where are you doing well, what are you doing well? But it was always, Dan, how many restaurants are you opening this year? It was how many, right? It was always the number, and I would say, I'm opening 6. I'm like, oh, that's cool, and then, what do you open this year? I'm gonna open up 9. Oh, wow, 9, that's amazing. What are you gonna open this year? I'm 19. Wow, 19. It was a number thing in everybody's head, right? And I wrote this article, and I said, better units versus more units. And the whole article,
ooh, I'm gonna steal that one.
Yeah, it's actually better units versus more units. But it was, the actual article was called "What's Your Count?" or "What's Your Number?" I think is what it is. What's your number? Because everybody would ask that. What's your number? How many are you up to? And so in my article, and I'll just recite it here, is it would be better for you to own 4 really profitable killer units for someone like me to come in and see that. I would look at that and say, well done on execution for these 4 units, than someone coming to me with 14 units and having 4 great ones, 6 okay ones, and 4 losing money. that brand right there is very low value to me. I would pay much, much higher for a smaller brand, 4 units, crushing it.
Just dialed in.
Dialed in, and have done the best they can. I mean, we'll still look at it and say, now we can help you really get ready for 50 to 100, 200 units. But you've nailed it. You've figured it out. I'm more impressed with those than I have 10 units or 15 or 20, and we're growing 5 more next year. Why are you adding 5 more when you're losing money on 6? Well, those are going to save these ones. No, they're not.
That's
that make
really
sense?
cool. Yeah, I get it now. Yeah, so nail 4. It's better than having 14 that are all over the place and losing a ton here.
Yeah, and for me, I still get the question, how many units are you going to do? And we say, well, our goal was 19 units this year in 19, and that's a lot of units. But we've sat in meetings too, and I said, guys, that was the number we put up on the board because we think we can execute on that, and that's for each of our different brands. But if it comes at 16, that's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, that's a good thought. I like
it's
that.
okay.
I've got to shift gears a little bit. I want to
Yeah,
ask
shift.
you. I'm going to ask your advice on something. You asked me earlier today when we just were talking in the front of the building here. I think you were asking me something about expansion and where we're growing and things like that. And do you have partners and things like that? There's a couple things that maybe I'm stuck, and so I need your help to get unstuck.
Yeah.
I've not had typically partners. In the very beginning, I had a partner in the very beginning, and then he got disinterested in doing all the daily stuff. So I'm like, okay, I'll just run it all, and you can go do whatever you want. And so since then, that was 27 years ago, never had a partner. I've enjoyed it because we have a team of our leaders, and we can make decisions together.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to the final approval, the stamp, there's not a lot of debate or arguments and things. But it works very collaboratively. That's been a really great thing. Another thing that embarrassingly I'll say is I've never sold any of the companies. I have 5 companies now, and they're all profitable, but I've never sold them. And it was because it was interesting. A mentor told me back in the day, I think it was like 2004, when we got an offer to buy our company, and he said, well, how long is it going to take you to make that amount of money if you scale it? And let me ask you this, to live your current lifestyle now, how much money would you have and how much would it have to make per year, return on that? And so that just got me on the path of, okay, let me just continue to expand and grow and take a good portion of all the net profit we had and reinvest and keep it private. And so literally all these companies, and here's a crazy statistic, since inception, we've never had a year that wasn't massively in the black for 27 years. We've never had a red year.
Which you don't even hear that, to be honest, Dan. So kudos to you. Seriously, you don't hear that.
Not to brag about it, but
No, you can. That's something to brag about.
it's just been that, I don't know, we've just kept it like that. But I think, though, my mind says, man, maybe we haven't expanded as quickly as we should have. And kind of going back to point 1 where you said nail it, that's something, again, my old mentor told me. He said, nail it before you scale it, man.
Nail it before you scale it.
Because otherwise you're going to be in a world of hurt. But I've always kept it kind of one-man ownership, so I don't have a lot of argument with people, and kept it to that level. Is there some advice you'd give for someone who's maybe like that? Maybe someone has 1 location or 5 or whatever, and it's cash flowing good and stuff like that,
Yeah, I would say this. So I think that there's a 2-pronged answer to your question. Now, let's see if I nail it with you, right, on the answer.
I know I'm asking you a few.
Yeah, and this is just my opinion, right, Dan? Everybody gets really nervous about partnerships because sometimes partnerships don't work, right? I've been in partnerships don't work. I mean, it's just impossible to be in a partnership that's always going to be perfect, right? I've been in 120 plus partnerships.
Wow.
Right? Partnerships, literal LLCs or C Corps where I've had a partner and we've made decisions together. And I look at all those partnerships and I think, what's made them work? And I think that you go into it with your eyes wide open, but you have things black and white on paper to say, if this happens, this is what you do. So you have to have a really good understanding of what you're agreeing to going into it, because when you go into a new partnership, it's always kind of this honeymoon. You're excited, right? It's you're dating, you're courting, it's exciting. It's when you have those tough discussions, when things are not going like you planned, that's when you have to think about, how is this going to be? So if you document when you're happy and you're getting along, all the things of what if, well, that's never going to happen, Dan. Well, it might. And if it does, it's okay. We just pull this out and we say, well, what did we write down and what did we agree to? So I think in any partnership, you gotta do that. Agree while you're happy. Don't wait until later on.
That's a big
Go into the relationship with your eyes wide open of what you expect and what they expect. And then make sure it's very clear about who's going to handle what. I mean, it can maneuver itself a little bit differently throughout the years, but you have to go in and say, Dan, you're really good with a team and building culture and everything. You focus on that. I think that I'm probably maybe a little bit stronger on finance and maybe raising the money and maybe operations. So let's both say that those are our swim lanes. I'm going to stay in this swim lane. You're going to swim in this. Let's not do this in swim lanes, because if you do that, we're going to fight.
So stay in your lane?
Stay in your lane, right? 100% stay in your lane.
Okay.
So I would just say in a partnership, that's what helps in partnerships.
Okay.
Partnerships as well, I actually think you think partnerships and you give up some of your pie. So if you take money from a private equity group or if you take money from an investor, then you've kind of split off a piece of pie and you've taken that money, you put it away. That's one type of partnership, because now you have someone else on your cap table or you have another partner. That's a little scary. But then you also have someone come in and you say, well, you're going to handle this, I'm going to handle that, and we're going to scale this from, 20 million to 50 million to 100 million. You'll get there easier if you have a partner. You'll always
Partners make it easier?
They do, because you can't duplicate you as easy as you think.
It's hard, yeah.
It's very hard. And I've made a tremendous amount of money in my career by giving up big chunks of the pie. And people are like, well, how is that? If you make $100, don't you keep the full $100? I'm like, well, yeah, but if I make $100 as a business and I'm taking $60, dollars of that, or $70, and I'm splitting up the other 30 to 40 with all these people and they care like I do, that $100 is going to turn into $1,000, then it's going to turn into $10,000 and $100,000 pretty quick. And it does. Because you can only scale to the limit that you have yourself.
Mm-hmm. I get it.
And people within your organization are never going to care. It doesn't matter what you try. They're not going to care ultimately like you and I do. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I do think that you're going to be probably thwarted as far as your ability to scale beyond your wildest dreams. And it's hard to be alone. It's hard to be alone, to where you can't sit down with someone across the table and go, crap, what decision do I make? And like you said, I can talk to all my team, and they're just a great source of support and comfort to me to make the right decision. But it's really nice to sit around my table and with my partners that care like I do, and we make the decisions together.
I could see that. Because right now, my technique, if I have a crazy decision, I'll call my peer group like Johnny, right?
Yeah.
I'll call him and be like,
Johnny P,
hey,
help me
dude,
out, man.
What do you think? He's like, dude, it's obvious. Just do this.
Just do this.
I've done that 50 times. Oh, okay. That's been my current.
And you realize that others have gone through it, right? I mean, everybody's gone through something that you haven't gone through, and you've gone through things that they haven't gone through. So having peer groups is good. And I would say, listen, if you haven't got into EA or EO or YEO or one of the organizations there, that's great. I did it when I was younger in my career. Now it's more, I'm going to my partners or to people that I rub shoulders with on a daily basis that really have gone way beyond me and have been successful. I'm like, you tell me what to do. But it's nice on a daily basis to be across the table from a partner and say, well, this is going to affect you too, like me. What do you think? Well, I think this, and God, I didn't think of it that way. You're going to make a better decision. You're going to grow the company, whether you like it or not, because they're going to push it whether you like it or not, because that's what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you the second thing, and a lot of entrepreneurs maybe get stuck in that under 4 or 5 locations, or maybe they get 10 or 14 locations.
Yeah.
But if the cash flow is good, so for a lot of my friends too, myself, and even my peers, and that, you open a certain amount of units, you're operating, you're making a few $1,000,000 a year, things are awesome. Yeah. It's only look like it's going to get better. Someone comes in, offers you maybe 5 times earnings, and you're like, man, like in a year from now or 2, we'll probably be making way more than they're offering now. Yeah. So they end up not selling and just keep operating.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Okay, that's a great question. Because I will say it's an individual answer for everybody, but I will say that this is the question that I ask everybody that I'm going to buy into their business. Because they're sitting where you're talking about, like this person sitting there, they're making money. I wouldn't buy into a business that is a turnaround, a startup. I want them to prove it out, and I'll pay them handsomely to buy in and sit at the table with them, and then we'll be partners and grow that second bite of the apple for them and our first bite of the apple to be much, much better. So coming into these, we want them to be successful. So I'm specifically saying this to everybody that has a successful business. You're taking good money out of the business. You're like, my lifestyle is great. But that's the question. Dan, is this a lifestyle business that you're trying to create so that you can pull $500, $1 million, $2 million out of the business?
That's the
go
question.
to Lake Powell, go on short vacations over the weekend with your family. Is this a lifestyle business that you want to just be the owner of and then live throughout your life owning and running? You've demonstrated that you can do that and do it successfully. But then I ask, or is this a legacy business? Is this a business that you want to create beyond your years? And if you're going to do that, what you just asked, like, why wouldn't they just keep it and just kind of run it and try to grow it? Well, because there's not really a succession plan there, and it's not a legacy you're creating. You're creating a lifestyle business, and lifestyle businesses die.
Dude, that's a big one. Lifestyle businesses die.
They're gonna die. And let me tell you why. There's a higher percentage of second generation family that ruin first generation wealth because you're creating this lifestyle business where you're not putting the things in place or the parameters in place to turn it over to or to your second generation, your kids.
They don't know what to
My
do.
boys, they've seen us do it,
Yeah.
but we've run it in a way where we've grown it and it's been stable, but it's been a lifestyle. You know, yeah, we've always owned PC laptops. It's been successful and we've had some success. We've had some hard years too, probably. But for me too, it's my boys are like, how did this meeting go? How's this going? They're involved, but I don't know if I've trained them to be what my wife and I are doing, right? They've just watched it. They say third generation's almost always better because they come up and they hadn't seen that. They learn business, processes and everything else to come in and say, we're gonna run this business like a business and not like a lifestyle. So if you want to create a legacy with your business that's gonna go well beyond your years, and this goes for everybody, you have to be thinking now, well, what does that look like? And if it's gonna look like that, I gotta change my thought process of maybe I do take money on and go bigger and then do ultimately get that larger check, right? The last thing I was going to say is you just said, and if I'm making $2 million this year and someone comes in and says, I'll give you $10 million, that could be the number, could be $6 million, could be 14, 15 million, depends on what the business is. You're like, well, I'm going to be doing that next year. Do you know how many businesses think that I'm just going to stay on this trajectory forever or that trajectory forever?
Oh, that's true.
It doesn't. I mean, I would say that, 99% of businesses kind of do this, right? And some just do this. So you can't always bet on the come, and you don't have a crystal ball. I don't, you don't.
No,
we don't know what's going to
broken.
happen. It's totally broken. So you can't make decisions on, well, I'm killing it today. I'm going to kill it tomorrow. I've had years where I'm like, this is incredible. I will be the next Mark Zuckerberg if I keep making money like this, right?
Yeah.
And then you go through another year and like, why is everything so expensive? And why is this so hard? And why has land gone up? And why? And then you're like, maybe I've just kicked the bucket, And then the next year you're like, oh, this is amazing. So things do this in business. Does it not? I mean, don't you feel like it's been like this?
Oh, absolutely.
Even if you've grown, overall, your regression line is up. Yeah. It's still like this to get there.
There's always a little bit of that fear, anxiety that you're like, crap,
I missed it maybe.
Or we could be irrelevant next year.
That's right.
We could be, I don't know, a typewriter manufacturing company.
That's right. It's a great analogy. But that's what I'm saying is that if you're successful today, don't just think, well, I'm the smartest guy in the room. I don't need anybody's help. I mean, look at me, I'm amazing. That it's going to be like that 10 times from now in 10 years.
So you could take some of those chips off the table, redeploy it, and diversify your portfolio a little better.
Yeah, I mean,
and then scale it with
think
better
about
help.
this. I mean, if you were to sit down with a wealth manager, and you and I were just sitting there and was like, hey, we both have a few $1 million, we want to throw it somewhere. Tell us where to put it. What's a wealth manager going to tell you and I? They're going to say, well, you need a diversified plan. Put some in this bucket, this bucket, this bucket, have this strategy. That's what they're going to say. Well, you and I as entrepreneurs, and everybody listening, if you're an entrepreneur, you're thinking, but I'm just going to focus on my business, and it's making me money, and there's cash flow and everything. But we're all in one bucket. And if you take that money and you don't put it elsewhere, if you don't diversify into something else, you're always going to be in just that one bucket. So you might be very wealthy on paper today, you might be making great income today, but that paper worth and the income you're taking out could change rapidly, and then you lost it all in one bucket. So you're kind of going against the forces of nature of diversified play. If you were to sell 20, 30, 40% of your company, still be in control. That's what's big in your mind is control. But take that and then diversify your life. So if this does fluctuate or ultimately become a typewriter shop, you have other things going for you.
It's guaranteed, though. It's almost like putting your bet on red or black.
Sure
right?
it is.
It's guaranteed. If you just keep putting all your winnings on there, your net game is going to be zero.
It's going to be zero.
It's going to go there.
You play long enough, it's going to be zero.
And I think you were mentioning you had to push reset a bunch of times in your life.
For sure I had to push reset. I mean, there was resets where I thought, we're done. But when I pushed reset, it was change strategy, cut back, tighten up, cut expenses. I mean, really dig deep. And then you make it through it. And then you look back on that and make, man, that was valuable to go through that. Some of the best times have been my hardest times. And it's funny because I'll say this, and I'll say this openly here. We did probably the most revenue as a company last year, and probably the most revenue that I've ever done as a CEO. Right?
Dude, it's great.
And we're the biggest we've been, most revenue we've been, and it was the hardest year of my career, 21 years.
Last year.
Yeah, it was the hardest. It was hardest emotionally for me. It was the hardest keeping it all together. It was hardest to keep people on tap with the vision that we were going to do for the next 10, 15 years of the company. So all these pivot and changes were tough on me. And so people from the curb looking into Four Foods would be like, Andrew's all got it together, and Andrew and Shauna have no issues, and they have money, and they have... No, it was a struggle last year to dig deep every day, and nobody would know that. And so just don't think it's always just going to be like this, right? It might be growing, but you also might have other problems that you're dealing with. You're like, God, I never imagined that it was going to be so hard.
Crazy stuff, crazy curveballs. Huh?
Crazy curveballs, yeah, that you can't even expect, you can't plan for. But you just know, you kind of see the bat coming. You're like, I think this is going to hurt. And when it hits, you're like, yeah, that hurt. Have you ever had that experience though before where you're just
really
like,
hurt?
Yeah, it's like, ooh, I think this is going to hurt. And you're like, ooh, that did hurt.
Yeah.
You kind of see it coming. You don't know what to do about it. You go through it and you're like, I don't want to go through that again. So I'm already altering things this year to never go through what I went through last year.
Mm-hmm. When I get punched in the face, typically on a business level or whatever, even in real life, spit out the blood.
Yep.
Right? Wipe it off. Put your fist back up and keep going.
Yeah.
Just keep going. And it's become to the point now, you know how a lot of, you see this, a lot of influencers on the internet say, got to do what you love, got to do what you love. Yeah. I do a weird thing. I spend 2 hours a day doing what I hate. 2 hours a day. Like, I used to.
I've never heard that. That's great.
I used to completely hate sitting in front of Excel spreadsheets and looking at our balance sheets and P&Ls and going through every single line and saying, okay.
Yeah.
I used to hate that. It used to give me like so much stress. I tried everything to try to focus, and it was just, I hated it. And so I would avoid it. And so now I'll spend usually actually an hour or two a day looking at numbers. And now what's strange though is after, and it's been like 5-6 years now, doing this kind of thing, actually I look forward to it. I'm like, ooh, what am I gonna find?
Yeah,
like,
that's fascinating.
So it's like mining.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, you're sticking your mining and thinking, I just found $500,000. And you're
I
like,
just hit gold.
But it's in your own camp. You already had it. And that applied to exercise and diet. I was really super fat before, and I used to just hate exercising, And so I'm like, let's just do what's the most miserable exercise I can imagine? What's horrible? I go, okay, going to a gym where there's a lot of people judging you, staring at you, rolling their eyes at you, thinking you're some fat dude on an elliptical.
Yeah, let me show you how to use that piece of equipment.
Yeah, it's just like that. And so I joined the gym that would give me that most painful exposure. And I went, and I hated it. And after about, 3-4 months, started making friends there and stuff. And I'm like, this is freaking great. And lost like 40 pounds, right?
That's incredible.
So what I hate so that I can do what I love. Yeah. And then it goes back to what you said about work and life and separating and balance. It's become one giant reality.
It's the same reality in the same hands. I mean, it's not separate.
Yeah.
Don't make them separate.
That's how it's become. So I don't know,
that's really cool, man.
It's been weird. I want to ask you one last question because we could go on forever about because you got a million things. But where do you see yourself like in 5 years, 10 years? What are you going to do?
I think that everybody's addicted to something, right? They're addicted to a drug, and the drug of choice can be vaping, it can be alcohol, it could be business, it could be success, it could be money. And I've admitted this many times too, though, but I'm actually addicted to creating jobs and opportunity.
Creating jobs.
Yeah. There's just something about having someone for the first day, come into the office and sit down at the desk and say, I'm excited to be here. And you look at the excitement in their eyes, and they're excited to be part of a new culture. And it's exciting also when we open up a new restaurant. And I've had less of these opportunities because I'm busier, but I fly in or I go to one of my new restaurants and I walk in and you have 60 individuals there that are embarking upon a new journey, and we've created these new opportunities and have had social and economic impact in that community. That's cool, man. I don't care if I make money anymore. It's like that's a byproduct of what I'm doing. So 5 to 10 years, we feel like we've scratched the surface, and I think you hear that with a lot of people. They're like, well, you've already been successful. We have been, but I feel like that was almost like the training camp, right? It was like we were going to the gym, it was uncomfortable, and we hated it, but then we've learned it, we've figured it out, and we enjoy it now. And so I think over the next decade, we'll do $1.5 billion, $2 billion of new restaurants and create tens of thousands of jobs, which is the most exciting. Do multiple brands, 10 to 20 brands that want that help to create legacy, status. I think I'll look back 10 to 15 years from now and say, I've done this for 25 years, and I've I've revolutionized a portion of that big market, but people will remember who we are and how we did it. So I think that that's our next step right now. It's what excites me.
So a question people ask me as well, and they probably ask you this. So are you ever going to retire? Are you ever going to do something? What are you going to do? Are you going to keep creating stuff like forever?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot, and we're not retirement age yet. And
No.
what the heck would we do if we even sold our businesses tomorrow? What would we do?
We're just getting started.
Yeah,
Our
we're
clones
just-
are almost built, so we can transfer our
Yeah.
consciousness.
Yeah.
We'll be 25 again.
And I'm glad you just said that. We just got started. There's days I'm tired. I mean, don't get me wrong, because I started my first business 21 years ago, and in between each of my businesses, I took 1 or 2 days before I started a new one. So I haven't really had a break for 21 years, right? Ever. And I very rarely go on long vacations, just a few days here and there. But I think it's interesting, though, that, in my 20s, and I think anybody that listens to your podcast, they should hear that, I was pretty impatient early in my career. It's like, I got to be successful now. Everybody else around me is the dot-com geniuses, and they're going public, and they're making all this money on vaporware. But at the end of the day, I got kind of blitzed by that. Like, I should be that too. But I realized I didn't really know much. Like, you're learning as you go, right, in your 20s. And so I would just say, in your 20s, just learn. I mean, you're kind of in the dark, and you're bumping into furniture, and you're stubbing your toe, and it's uncomfortable and it hurts. That's okay. But that's kind of like, it's your duty to learn as much as you can in your 20s and not just expect it. In your 30s, I think you have to refine what you've learned, right? Refine it. Like, get better at your skills and know what you are too, right? I think everybody's like, I'm good at this, and this, and this, and this. No, none of us are. I'm really good at 2 things, and I'm really not very good at others. I'm gonna find other people I can partner up with on those other things that are really good at that, and I'm okay with that. So learn what you are and really refine it. And so now that we're in our 40s, Dan, I just feel like I've kind of figured it out later 30s and early 40s where I'm like, I kind of get business a little bit better, and it seems a little easier to me in my mind. Well, of course you don't do that. You do it this way, and you fund it that way, and you structure it this way. It's just easier. So I just think that I can use all that experience for the last 21 years as kind of my training ground. And now I'm really applying it and saying, the next 15 years is going to be so dope.
And you're getting better and better at it.
Getting better at it. Does that mean I'm not going to have failures? For sure not. I'm going to have failures, right? I'm going to make dumb decisions. I think every CEO does every day. But I'll make dumb decisions, but I think I'll know how to even adapt to them faster, easier, realize that failures are just part of business instead of putting myself through hell thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm a failure, I made $1 million mistake. Everybody does when you get bigger. You're just going to make mistakes. But you just deal with it differently, right? So I just think that moving forward, it's going to be, I think I'm going to apply what I've learned. It's going to be a lot more fun. I'm having more fun than I ever did. But now I'm going to go for gold. I mean, when I say go for gold, I'm going to create a lot of jobs. That's
It's
gold
cool,
for
and
me.
I can see it in your eyes. It doesn't, and maybe we've been on a similar journey. In your 20s, in your 30s, you have more fear.
Tons more.
Because
fear.
it's new.
For sure.
You know.
You have nothing to benchmark it against, right? You're just kind of.
When you get a little old, your brain, we get calluses.
Yeah.
And we kind of know how the game's going to play out a lot of times.
Yeah,
Not
you
always
do.
right, but.
And when you see the bat coming, you're like, I'm going to duck this time. Right?
Yeah.
Because that hurt last time.
That's right.
Yeah.
Man, this is great. I want to recap some of your Jedi wisdom here. So a couple things that are really important, I think, for the entrepreneurs that are watching this, anyone thinking about starting their business as well, is now it's very important that the employees really know you care. That's something that you were talking
really
about.
important.
Super important to know that you really care. Help them map it out,
Yep.
right? Start at your top with your core team and make sure that you have their futures and their careers mapped out.
Figured out.
And that trickle down will go to the rest and actually get to your customers at the end of it. I got more here. This is good. Know your vision and the execution plan of knowing where you're headed.
Make sure everybody in the organization knows it.
Make sure everybody knows.
Yeah, make sure everybody knows your vision, because if you're visionless, that's how you're going to lose your employees. Because they're like, what am I doing here? What are we even trying to accomplish? They'll leave.
So know that.
Yeah.
You're fixing lots of inefficiencies always, right? It says here.
Yeah.
Wow. Most of your days are spent, again, with real estate meetings, investors, financing, to-dos, execution, and scouting many brands.
Got a lot of brands.
This is really cool. What else here? Better units versus more units. That's probably
Everybody
the
has
big
that.
one. That's one that
It's a big one. I think everybody wants more, and more doesn't necessarily mean better, right? We've known that analogy. Why haven't we listened to that? More is not always better. I just thought if I had
quality.
more cars, Dan, it would be cooler. I get more and more and more cars, and it's worse because I have to take care of all of them.
Can't
So I'm
deal
like
with them.
shaving them
Who's
off
gonna
now.
wash them all?
What the heck am I doing to all these cars?
Yes, that is true. Wow. Let me ask you a question too. Where can people find you?
So they can find me on LinkedIn. So Andrew K. Smith. They can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably
Andrew
where
K.
I'm,
Period Smith LinkedIn.
LinkedIn is probably the best one that I use. I know that there's a lot of other ones out there, but I just don't. And then it's just Andrew K. Smith also on Instagram. They can come follow me.
What's the? It's 4 food groups.
So it's 4foodsgroup.com.
4 foods.
Yeah, it's spelled out FOURFOODSGROUP. So it's
And
all
they can
spelled
have a
out.
link to all your restaurants.
All the restaurants, locations, our team, our vision, everything.
Friends, I want you to eat at his restaurants. And I don't say this just because, he's on the show. I want you to eat there because it's really freaking good. But one thing I want you to notice when you go in there, I want you to notice the 5 senses. And I don't know if you have a specific thing in your operations manual. One thing I noticed, though, and we have this in our org, is the 5 senses. When you go into any one of his restaurants, you will have all your senses engaged. The sight, the sound, the smell, the touch, the taste. There's always good music. The smell is right. Temperature is right. The greetings are right.
Should be every time.
It feels like, every time, that same experience. There's not a lot of variance.
And if not, I'm sorry. We're trying.
It's been pretty freaking good. I mean,
Pretty consistent.
I mean, I'm really impressed. And I didn't even know you before I actually looked up some of these other brands that you've acquired recently. I didn't even know you own those brands, but they have all those connections in common. So you can definitely see
appreciate that.
your influence,
We try to be the wizards behind the curtain.
throughout the empire. So pretty amazing, man.
Thank you, Dan.
I appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
And sharing all this
Pleasure.
wisdom. And friends, remember, how do you pay Andrew back for his time today? Well, watch this over and over again and execute on the
yeah.
lessons that he's taught you. And just as important as that is if you find it useful, share this with your friends and loved ones or people you know that are entrepreneurs or want to become one, that want to do it the right way. Remember, you don't have to buy anything here. We're not selling you anything. Just pay it forward like that. Well, I'm Dan Young. This is Andrew Smith, and this is Dan's Millionaire Code. Make sure to check us out on Facebook, Instagram. We're all over on Spotify, Google Play, YouTube. We're everywhere now. And if you like it, rate it a 5-star, give it a thumbs up, give it a heart, a love, a like, and a share. So thanks again, and guys, get out there and execute. Love you guys.